You may wonder why we're bringing a city car to the mountains. It's not exactly its natural habitat, but this isn't the normal city car. Toyota has reinvented its Aygo. It's now got an X on the name, which Toyota likes to call a Aygo Cross because there's also a Yaris Cross in the range. There is a bit of a justification for that X in the name because it's got a lot more ground clearance than it did before. In fact, the car is much larger than the previous Aygo, and the reason for that is it's based on the platform of the Toyota Yaris. That means it's wider, it's longer, it's got a much bigger boot. We'll show you that in a minute. Toyota wants it to look like a crossover, so you get this black plastic cladding, ground clearance raised, and this distinctive two-tone colour finish. This particular model is a special edition and it's got a cardamom green, they call it. This paintwork is really distinctive. I think it looks good. The overall car, it looks a lot more interesting than before as well. The original was, it's a city car. It was really functional, despite the fact that Toyota said the design was inspired by manga. This one has a lot more about it, and we've actually been getting a lot of looks driving it around, so people are interested in it. It's distinctive. It's still a small car, but it's got a lot more road presence than most cars in the segment. Adding to the presence of this car is the size of its wheels. 17-inch rims are standard on the Aygo Cross, and that's big for a city car actually. And this one is riding on the optional 18-inch rims. They look great, they add to the side profile, but despite that, the tyres themselves actually are not very wide. That's a good thing in terms of keeping road noise down and keeping the cost of replacement down. A big advantage of the new Aygo Cross actually over the regular Aygo before is its boot. Because it's based on the Yaris's platform, there's more space in it, and this boot is a good deal bigger. It holds over 200 litres, which may not sound like a lot against something like a Toyota Camry, but it's good for the city car class, and it's deep, it's wide, there's plenty of space there. You'll easily get weekend bags if you're going to the airport, easily get a weekly shop in there. It's definitely sufficient. One last thing. This boot lid is worth a discussion. It's one continuous panel here, and it's probably hidden a little because the back of this car is black and it integrates nicely with that. So it just looks, the whole back of the car is this black finish. It's all shiny, it's reflective. It looks quite special actually. As I mentioned, it's based on the Yaris's underpinning, so there's a bit more space. It's actually quite a bit wider, which really helps up here. City cars are mostly made for one or two people, so the rear seats are less important. We'll have a look at them anyway in a minute, but up front there's plenty of space. It doesn't feel very different to the Yaris, in fact. It's got the Yaris's steering wheel, which is good as well. However, Toyota put a bit more investment into the design of this car to differentiate it from the Yaris and actually from every other city car. And it's really interesting looking inside. Got this big curved section here in the middle, which holds quite a large screen. Very clear, very easy to use touchscreen. Obviously it's got smartphone mirroring, so you've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and most people will use that. The interface is decent even beyond that. It's also quite well equipped. This particular car has got heated seats, it's got a lovely wireless charging pad down there, and these lovely one-piece backrests and headrests. It is a bit above the usual city car, that's for sure. Like all city cars, the Aygo Cross is built to a price, but it doesn't feel cheap inside here. And Toyota's clever design features help with that. So even though the Speedo is quite a small item, it's got a lot of detail in it, and there's some dinky little features as well. It's got a little rev counter up the side here, and in the middle, you've got an onboard computer, which has a lot of detail in it. I think it's worth also pointing out that within that, you can adjust a lot of the active safety systems, and this car is loaded with Toyota Safety Sense, it's called. There's absolutely loads of active safety built into it. An extra safety feature, which Toyota doesn't list as a safety feature, is the use of physical controls for the air conditioning. So you don't need to take your eyes off the road and use a touchscreen for it. It's something we're all for. In terms of practicalities, the front of the car is very well catered for actually. It's a decently sized glove box despite the size of the car. We've got two cup holders here behind this wireless charging pad I mentioned. There's another cup holder back here. Got a USB port here, a 12-volt socket. Door pockets are okay in size. It's really fairly practical for a city car. As it's a city car, it's not really designed to take a big family of people everywhere, but it's good to know that the back seats are not completely unusable. So there are two seat belts, two positions, and this is me sitting behind my driving position. So there's not loads of room, but it's not uncomfortable either. My head isn't touching the roof, which is good. If I asked the driver nicely, they might move forward a little bit and I'd have a bit more knee room for a longer journey, but the seat itself is comfortable. There's good support there. One little feature to point out at the back, and again, this is quite common in a lot of city cars, is these windows. Instead of sliding up and down, they've got a pop-out feature. Now, some people don't like that, but actually being a parent with young kids, that's a good thing. child sitting back here has full control over opening and closing the window in complete safety. It's a neat feature. I mentioned earlier the relevance of bringing a city car to the mountains because this is now designed to look like a crossover. And you might think that it is, because it is a city car at heart, it might feel out of its depth on bigger roads and mountain roads and motorways, etc. But it really doesn't. This car is really very good on the road. It shouldn't be a surprise, I guess, that it's based on the Yaris. The Yaris is very good on the road, and this carries that on really. I think the biggest surprise was actually, despite the fact that this has got the 18-inch wheels and therefore lower profile tyres than usual, it still rides very well. It rides bumps well, and that's really good for its natural habitat of the city. So, you know, you're driving through pockmarked streets, over speed humps, and there's potholes, etc. You want something with a bit of absorption in the suspension, and this does that very well. Despite all of that, it still holds the road well. It's enjoyable to drive on a country road, on a twisty road. It's not got a lot of power, admittedly, but it doesn't need it, to be honest. It feels like a light car, it's agile, it's enjoyable to drive. And of course, the advantage of the small, low-powered engine is that it won't cost a fortune to insure. Despite the fact that the Aygo Cross is bigger than its predecessor, it's still a small car, which is brilliant for city driving. Easy to park, easy to manoeuvre. Multi-story car parks, a cinch. It's perfect in that environment. The city car market has been dwindling for a while, but Toyota has cleverly reinvented its Aygo. So this is suddenly a car you will want to own. Some people will love the look, some people love the image, and it still is a city car at heart. It's still for the city despite its crossover appearance. It's certainly more interesting than every other city car on the market today. It's worth a look. If you want to know more about the Aygo Cross and all of its rivals, head on over to CompleteCar.ie. It's a good tool for researching your next new car.